Ready?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of Nowhere. Well, my guest today is Deborah Jane East. Deborah, I think she was on my show. Must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. It's quite a while ago. And another thing I've got to tell everybody, my operation's been brought forward now to New Year's Day. Eve, should I say. I'm going into York. It's about, I don't know, 2 hour drive from Briglington. Um, I've got to be there for 11:30, and I think my operation's about 2:30 in the afternoon. So, and I'll be in 3 nights. Um, so I should be back home on Friday. And I should be up and about, no problem about it. Everybody knows me out there. No lets me down. I'm always up and try to get on with life as best I can. I know Paul will be here for me because he is down below. He's in the bottom flat. I'm in the top flat. So I know he's had a bad back and everything like that with sciatica, but he'll be fine. Paul will. Um, he might come up and see us tonight anyway. We'll just wait and see. So it's nice to have Deborah Jane East on my show today. Hello there, Deborah.
Hello, Bob. It is so good to be on your show. It's been quite a while, hasn't it?
It has been a long time. When we talk about UFOs and all that, how did it all start for you?
Well, it's strange, but it started when I was 12 years old. 12 years old. I lived back in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I had five sisters. Okay, I was the oldest. And me and
Oh,
my family were living in this big two-story creepy old house. And I remember it so plain. We were watching television late at night, and we had a big black dog named Bear. And my father said, "Hey, what is that dog barking at? He's driving me crazy." So he went out on the porch to see what the dog was barking at. And he immediately ran in about 15 seconds later and said, "Everybody come out here." So me and my sisters and my mother, we all went to the edge of the porch and we saw Bear, with his head pointed up in the sky. And when we bent over to look, we saw a huge cylinder shaped UFO. It was in the moonlight. We could see it plain as day. It was less than 400 feet away. It was up in the air. It had a center of running lights, red, blue, green. It just continuously went around and around, and it was hovering there. So all of us first were like, in shock. When you first see something like that, you go, "What is this?"
they do.
Right. So the dog kept on barking, and we watched it for about 15 to 20 minutes. It slowly came over a large hill, came within a couple of hundred yards of our house, and it slowly went to the left towards the highway, just sort of bobbing a little bit backwards and forwards. And our dog walked underneath it, looking up, barking at it, and followed it for about a mile. So after it got to the road, I said, "Dad, we need to call somebody and tell them about this." And he said, "We can't do it because they'll think we're crazy." So after that, it's like we never talked about it again, but it was always in the back of my mind. And so when I retired from being a social worker, it all came back to me and I started researching, and here I am. No one can ever tell me they don't exist because we saw one.
exactly. How did you feel about viewing that UFO then?
When you're looking at one, you are so in awe. It's like they're majestic looking. I mean, they're definitely not like an airplane. They're not making any sound. They're able to hover in place, and the enormity of it. I mean, it was as big as a tractor trailer. And I didn't feel any fear. I wasn't like, oh no, they're going to get us. Because back in 1967, if you remember, we had things like Lost in Space or My Favorite Martian. We never really showed the
Yeah.
negative side, of what it could be. So I wasn't afraid at all.
Yeah, because and then I suppose you didn't have a camera or anything like that. Like today, we've got mobile phones where you can just take a photo. But I suppose in them days, you get so much enthralled looking at it, you don't know
Exactly.
what to do, do you? For best.
And plus, you're afraid to take your eyes off of it because it might be gone, and you don't want to waste not even 1 second of being able to view that. And it's like, it's more than mesmerizing. It's almost like you're in a trance, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah, I've been there. I saw a UFO in 19. Paul was asking me the other day again. I think it was 1965 or 66. I saw a cigar-shaped object in the sky, and the three of us saw it. Um, he had a line down the middle of it, and then it was over a golf course, and it shot away after a bit. And I thought note of it. Uh, the local paper came out the night after, and my name was there. It put man sees flying object over Halifax. And one of the
Wow.
lads had rang the local paper and told them my name, not their own name, but mine.
Oh my gosh.
And I got ridiculed at work. I was about 17 at the time, 16 or 17 at the time, maybe 18, I'm not right sure. And they're saying, "You've been in paper. You're crackers, you are. Was you drunk at the time?"
Oh no.
Yeah. I got ridiculed for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then somebody from London came to see me. I can't remember his name now. He had a badge with him. He knocked at the door and he said, "Is Robert in?" And my mum said, "Oh, yeah, he is. Can I come and see him?" And I filled all these forms out, had to draw it and everything. I thought, oh my God, you know. And I've been trying to find it ever since, but I can't find it.
Wow. Well, I completely understand that because ever since I saw that UFO, I have looked for similar crafts that looked exactly like that. And I have looked and looked and looked. I've found some that are a little bit similar, but not 100%. But I did find a lot of sightings in 1987 in that area for what I saw. And my parents, back in 1987, when there was a huge UFO flap in Withville, Virginia, close to where they lived at, over 2,000 sightings in a week, Bob, of
Oh
UFOs.
my God.
It's the largest UFO flap recorded in the United States, and it was even featured on a popular TV series. And the thing about it is, the radio announcer, Danny Gordon, he was had a very popular radio show. He was very shocked when he found out that police officers had claimed to see a UFO. That was very credible. And so he started talking about it and everything.
course it was.
Yes, and
Tell us a bit about your Dutch in your early 20s.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Bob?
We're back on again.
Okay.
Tell us about your abduction in your 20s.
Oh, yes, let me tell you. I never really knew that it was an abduction till later, but I was asleep in bed, and I lived in a house that was 2 stories high, so that through my bedroom window, you were looking downhill, and that bedroom window was up about 20 feet. And all behind my house was woods and several acres of land. There were no roads or no houses behind. So I was laying there, trying to go to sleep and everything. And I was facing the window, and all of a sudden, a light came through that window that was so bright. I can only describe it. It was as if a lighthouse beacon was shining in my window. It totally, the whole room was dazzling white, so white I could not even open my eyes. I closed my eyes in fear because number one, I knew that nobody could climb up a ladder and shine anything that bright into my room. And I knew nothing was behind my house. And it totally, it was, you could not even look at it. Now, to be honest, the first thing I thought was a Bible verse, okay? The Bible verse talked about angels, and when anyone saw an angel, they would fall down in fear because of the dazzling light. So I thought about that briefly.
Mm.
And then the next thing I knew, I woke up that next morning and I vaguely remembered something going on. So I walked over and looked out the window. I looked down to see if I saw a ladder or anything, and I didn't. And then all during the day, I had a strange dream keep on popping up in my head. And the dream was that somebody or something came through the door. They just came, walked through my door and looked around. They were short and they were asking me questions. So I didn't feel any fear. I remember going through what I felt was like a portal. It's like I rose through the ceiling
Yeah.
and went to this other place. And I knew some things had happened, and then I could tell that whatever it was, I was coming out of it. And I had asked a question, they had given me an answer, and I kept on saying, I need to remember this. I need to remember this. So I felt my memory being like sucked from my head. So I kept on saying this word over and over again, over and over, so I wouldn't forget it because
Right.
I knew it was important. But you know what? I could not remember it. I knew it started with a
Oh,
S. I knew it started with the S. That's all I could remember by the time I woke up. So I totally forgot about the dream and about the light for I guess it was several years. And then I was watching television and there was a report that came on about a place called Samaria. I immediately knew that was the word. That was the word that I was trying to remember. So I looked up all the research, and it was about a place overseas where a civilization, it was one of the earliest civilizations ever recorded, um, they found the artifacts. And in this town, they talked about the Space Brothers that came down to Earth to visit mankind. And there were pictures of UFOs and people that looked strange, and it was all about this race of people coming down to talk to humanity.
Oh,
So I thought, even as I speak of this now, Bob, I get chills all over my body.
right.
I
I bet
get
you do.
chills. Yes, because that's what I asked him. My question was, have you ever been here before? Where did you come from? That was the question I asked them after I realized what they were. So I was so intrigued by that. I started researching. It obsessed me in every waking moment. I started doing research, and I knew there was a story within this. So I didn't have all the facts and everything, but I wrote a book that was called Radiance. And I worked this storyline in the book because I wanted somebody to know, even though I couldn't write it as a autobiography, I wrote it as a fiction book because there were
Right.
elements within the book that I did experience. So after that, I started doing radio shows and discovering people, and here I am.
Yeah, brilliant. Rebecca's got a question for you here. I'll just put it on screen. Hiya, Deborah. How has that particular experience affected your life choices and decisions, if at all?
Well, it's really affected me in a lot of ways. The first is how I view the truth. As you know, right now, we are having a deluge of reports in the United States about unidentified flying objects, about drones, about all kinds of sightings. Like in New Jersey, we've had over 6,000 sightings. I take everything with a grain of salt because I have found out the UFO world is full of some fraudulent people. You can't believe everything you read. We have time and time again found truth, those of us that research, like myself and my wonderful friend and your wonderful friend, Paul
Yeah.
Sinclair,
Mm,
and we research and we weed out all of the false information and we go for a higher level of truth. And we have open doors. We don't just say, "Oh, everybody's lying." We don't. You have to look at each individual case and study it. That's what I love about Paul Sinclair. He really is boots on the ground.
correct.
He hears something, he doesn't base an opinion on what other people say. That man goes out there, he takes notes, he talks to the person, he investigates the area, he does extensive research. So that's what I do as well. I don't join in with the crowd. As you know, we have people, and I'm not afraid to say this, that make up stuff, that create personas for themselves, that they are constantly contacted by, this race and that race, but they do it to get money. And you know what? They do get money, Bob.
They do.
The real people, we don't make
Money. It's true, Deborah. There's lots of people out there do this, make thousands of pounds, and boots on ground like yourself, Paul, various other people don't make a lot of money, but enjoy what they do. And they go out every night when they can, or people ring him up and like yourself, and you go and investigate, go talk to them. I think Deborah's gone off. I think she'll get herself back in again. Oh, wait a minute. I might. I'm sure she'll get back to us in a minute. For some unknown reason, she's just gone off. She's probably trying to get back in again. And it's funny, we talked about this before the show. Their mic is not connected. So she's going to get back into us very shortly. We just talked about drooms. Hey, we're here again.
I'm here.
Hello. Hello. It's strange. We talked about this before the show.
Yes, we're prepared for this, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Steph was just saying in the chat room here, but she had a sighting of a UFO. I saw a UFO in 1997 while walking back from the shop in the early evening with my mum. We were looking at a comet hail hop bop. We noticed multiple objects moved across the sky over Doncaster Racecourse. That's not far away from where me and Paul live, Donny. It's South Yorkshire. And then she said I thought there were seagulls at first. It lit up the A18, but when the object started zigzagging, then shot across the sky, Mum said, "Well, that's a bit queer. I think she's gone off again." She's going to get back in a minute. I'm sure she will. Right, she's going to try and get back in again. Now, we're here.
Can't keep a good woman down. Here I am again, Bob.
Exactly. And she was saying about that UFO sighting. She said, I thought they were seagulls at first, but they're lit up by the A18 when the object started zigzagging across the sky. You know, on that in the 18s, in about 1997, there's a lot of rock activity around the UK at that time.
That's interesting. Wow.
What about Men in Black, Missing Time?
I've I had missing time that first experience in the 20s because it was actually sort of erased from my mind. I thought it was a dream, for a long time. I thought it was just a dream I had. So it took me several years to realize the enormity of what happened to me. The other UFO sightings I had two different ones after that. One of them, once again, all of my family, we saw it. I was on the phone with my sister,
She's gone off again. We'll get her back on again anyway. Yeah, I think she's had quite a few sightings over the years. In the late 30s as well. Here we go. We got her back on.
See, I told you it was going to be a good show, Bob.
Yeah,
They
no,
only
yeah.
they only
Waiting.
fight they only fight us if we're doing a good job.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Um,
But
and
but
then
the
I think the other one was in your late 30s.
Yes, and when I saw those UFOs, they were all probably looking at the horizon. They were all three hovering above the treetops. They were very close together. And so we watched them. They once again had the rotating center lights. After my father, myself, and my sisters watched it, all of a sudden the two on each end took off at perpendicular angles. They were gone within 3 seconds, Bob. Both of them shot up into the air in opposite directions. And then the one in the center hovered for a little bit and then it shot off straight up in the air. So I thought aircraft can't do things like that. They can't do it. So I knew it wasn't aircraft. And the last UFO I saw was in the 90s. I know now that it was unidentified at the time, but now I know that it was one of our crafts. It was a triangle-shaped craft. My husband had come home and he said, "There's a UFO right up the hill. Jump in the truck." So we all jumped in the truck, went up there. It was a triangle-shaped craft. You could see windows, you could see figures within the ship. It was rotating. I guess it was probably maybe 500 feet off the ground. And then it shot up in the air, and two other craft joined it, and they were sort of like staying close together, just going real slow, going over the countryside. Well, at the time, we had never saw anything like that. We thought it was a UFO.
Hmm.
But now I know it was a TR-3B, which was back engineered from extraterrestrial craft. So that is a very popular spot in Westfield, North Carolina for UFO sightings. It's also close to Withville, which I spoke about earlier, where the big UFO flap happened in 1987. So they're all over the place, but as many of them are ours as they are extraterrestrial.
Do you think we are chosen to see things like this?
Yes, I do. I think some people are chosen, and the reason why, I have had people in neighborhoods live on the same street. They would tell me that specific neighbors would be out looking up in the air at a UFO craft. And then on down the road, people would be walking around, and even though they were pointing, saying, "Look, look, there's a UFO," the other people just ignored and they didn't say they could see anything. So I know they can pick and choose who sees what, and I don't understand why, but I think that happens sometimes.
Yeah, I've always said this. We are chosen. Does I know it runs in your family. Does it go further back?
It sure
To,
does.
to your grandparents.
It went back to my grandmother, and she lived about 10 miles from our family home. And back then, they didn't talk about UFOs and everything, but she told us one time she went to the barn, and when she was in there getting eggs and stuff, she said something was in under the hay, and she didn't know what it was, and it scared her because it was close to getting dark, like twilight. When
Yeah.
she went out of the barn, she looked down in the field and saw something following the river, and she said it was a big, large, uh, she said it looked like a beach ball. It was big and round and white and glowing, and she said it followed the river. It went on down towards y'all's house. And so what she saw was a UFO, but, you know, back in the 1950s, nobody much called them UFOs. That, came later. So I also found out in my 20s that I had another sister that was abducted, and we each had not told each other about it.
Oh.
But when she explained to me, I remember one night, two different nights, my sister woke up screaming. She was in another bedroom, and we were over on the other side, me and my other sister, and she was screaming, "Someone's trying to get in my window." And oh my gosh, my dad came. He looked, he couldn't find anything. And I thought, well, who would be trying to break in on a second story window? So she came in there, and we were all young. I think I was 9 years old. She was 5, and then my other sister was 6. So we were terrified to go to sleep. And then a couple hours later, I was still awake, and I saw the shadow of someone at my window. And so Let me tell you, I was so terrified I couldn't scream. I poked my sister and I said, "Scream, scream." And Irene started screaming her head off. And this not only happened one time with her, it happened 2 or 3 other times that she would scream because she said something was trying to come in the window.
Right.
And then in her 20s, she said, "I never told you this, but one time I was levitating in my bedroom." And I said, "Why were you levitating?" She said, "I was abducted." So I was like, "Oh my gosh, if I wanted proof, right there it is." My sister had experienced a similar incident. So it does run in families.
Is she still having problems now then?
She hasn't said anything. She does follow them like I do and do a lot of research, but all of those childhood memories still haunt her. Now, some of us we will have recall. You know, we go back and things are revealed to us. Some people, Bob, all they have is vague childhood memories and they never really get a full explanation. You know, it's just that vague deja vu thing. Oh, I know something happened, but I'm not really quite sure what it was. So that's how it's experienced in some families.
I know to change the subject, Rebecca's just saying, sorry if this is a silly question. Do you get crop circles in America? Thank you.
We sure do. We get crop circles. In fact, I've seen several videos of objects in America over fields. Like this object would be hovering above a crop, a wheat crop or
Yeah.
something, and magically crop circles appear. And we've had a lot of research on things like that. A lot of people that investigate how the crops, how they are exploded at the joints. And they say that we don't have anything to do that. And they're suggesting some kind of microwave energy, but they're also reporting that when people go in these areas that they have healings, they have good energy. So I do feel like some of them are messages to us. I do feel like that. But, you know, anytime you have a real thing, you've got a hoaxer. And if you know the history of crop circles, there were two men who strapped boards onto their feet,
Correct.
walking around trying to hoax people. So it really has clouded the subject of crop circles, but we do have them.
It does, yeah. When you're talking about healing, a good friend of mine is unfortunately he's passed away now, Derek Savory, found a
Oh, I
spot
knew him well. I knew him
at,
well.
at Redemption Forest, found a spot where he could heal people. And he used to take people down, maybe in a wheelchair or something, got to this spot and said, right, I'm going to do some treatment on you. And they would stand up and say, I feel 10 times better now, Derek. Thank you for your healing. And he did it for months and months and months. And then he left it for a while, went back down, and it'd been all fenced off. He said there were helicopters going over him when he was doing it. He never thought note of it. And then when he went down again, they fenced it all off so he couldn't get near that spot.
Well, let me tell you, Derek Savory is a very special person to me. I knew him in the very beginning. I interviewed him. One of my favorite shows with Derek was what I titled The Alien Stones. You may have
Oh,
heard him talk about that, the
yeah,
stones
I've had
that would
Derek
fall
on the
down.
show. Numerous, with Derek, anything what happened in his life, mainly, I used to pick it up and I used to say, right, Derek, do you fancy coming on show? And he went, you've done it again. I've something to tell you.
Oh my gosh. He was very perceptive, and I sensed that gift in him. And when he told me his story, It was once again, I felt recognition in my body. You know, I would get the chills, I would get the hair standing up on my head. That's one thing I've noticed with true abductees. When they meet another abductee, they get that deja vu feeling. They get that just the overall, I call it high strangeness. And Derek had some stories that were incredible, and I can't help but think there was something really special about him. And when he got with his wonderful mate Penny, oh my gosh, together both of them did such great research. And he told me about these things. He showed me his photographs. When
Mm,
we lost Derek, we lost a very genuine soul, and I still miss him. I still miss Derek.
I do. It wasn't long before that he came to Briglington with his partner, and he did a talk in Briglington. Me and Paul went to see him. He's been to Bempton quite a few times over the years, and we miss him. Absolutely miss him.
We
What
do.
a character.
And, this is what I know about Derek. He basically, when I first met him, Bob, he was so shy. He was shy. He would never think in a million years about doing a radio show. He wouldn't, but he became pulled into this energy, and it was like a natural thing for him. And then, of course, his son also was abducted, and then he
Mm,
was friends with Paul Sinclair.
yeah.
And that's how we find authentic people, is there's just a connection with them, just like I had a connection with Paul when I first met him, and with you. People
Mm.
that are genuine, they have this aura around them, and Derek was one of those. So, yes, I know he'll be missed for a long time. And I'm so glad that you got to know him too, because I'm sure he enriched your life with all of his great information and his
Ah,
photography.
we always had a great laugh. We always had a great time together.
He could be
Uh,
funny too. He had me cracking up with the alien stuff. He had me
yeah,
cracking up with some of his stories.
very dry humoured as well.
Yes, and we
But,
we need that in the field, don't we, Bob? Because sometimes it's
oh,
so
we do.
serious.
Oh, it gets far too serious sometimes. Tell us about your near death experience.
The near death experience. Well, I was having surgery, and I thought it was routine surgery. And so I figured everything would be okay. So I went in. The next thing I remembered, I heard voices talking, and I felt myself lift up above my body, and I could see a nurse run through the doors. And then the next thing I heard her telling my daughter that I was in cardiac arrest, and I could hear my daughter praying for me, even though she was like two two stories down below me in the family waiting room. And as I hovered above my body, I automatically knew that I was dying. I could see the heart monitor. I know my heart rate was over 200 beats a minute, and the doctors were saying, "Yes, we are losing her." They were doing all kinds of, things to try to get me back. And I knew that I was in the presence of a spiritual being, and I can only describe it as just like a freedom. Like, I could not feel the weight to my body. I could not see my hands or my body, but I was up above it. It was like in a different kind of place. And I knew that I was going to die, but I asked what I know now was God. I said, "Would you let me stay here just a little while longer? Because I have stories to tell. I have people I want to help. I have work that I need to do." And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I woke up in ICU. I had been there for 8 days.
Good
And
God.
I first didn't know who I was. I had to look down at my bracelet because I had been in such a terrible state. It took my memory away for a little bit. It took me several days to remember who I was. So
That's
after
frightening.
that is when I thought, I have been lazy. I need to start writing my books. I need to start doing my radio shows. I need to get out there and get information because I'm the only one that can tell my side of the story. And do you know, Bob, I have found out many, many abductees have had near death experiences. And I think
Eh,
it makes us more perceptive, more
Yeah,
empathic, I believe.
yeah, I think it does. It must have been frightening for you as well.
It was frightening, but I'm not afraid of death now. And my story was included in a book by Brett Oldham. He wrote a collection of near death experiences, and he put my recollection in there because he said that he had also talked with other abductees, and many of them, they have these experiences, and it's like it opens a doorway in your mind. It
Yeah,
makes you more empathic. It activates, some people say that when you're that close to death, it activates your pineal gland. I don't know. All I know is what I experienced, and after that, I did become more empathic, and it was something I didn't really want. I was doing a radio show with a lady, and after the radio show, she wanted to have a meeting with all of us female radio people. And so she was talking, and she said, I need to tell you something. We have a stalker. All of you are being stalked. I'm being stalked. And she told me his name, and she kept on talking. All of a sudden, in my mind, I kept on saying, I know who this is, and he is got mental health problems. He idolizes Charles Manson, which is a serial killer,
oh
and
yeah.
he's been stalking. And I kept on thinking this, and my mind would not stop. And I thought, I need to tell her this. And I thought, no, she'll think I'm crazy. I'm not going to do this. I'm not, this is stupid. I can't do this. Well, all of a sudden, it became so strong, I blurted it out. And I cringed as I did it, Bob, because I thought she's going to think I'm crazy. And she said, how did you know that? How did you know that Charles Manson was his idol? And that scared me. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? I didn't really know what it was. And so after that, this still happens to me from time to time. I call it the knowing. And it's just something
Knowing, yes.
you don't understand where the information came from, but you know it. Have you experienced anything like that, Bob?
I have, yes, I have. Sometimes I have, and I've said to people about it, they go, how did you know that? I said, well, I just did. It came to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it were a download I got, but I am psychic. I do pick things up, and I don't use my gift much now like I used to do before. Because I get involved with other things now, and it's nice for a change to do something. But there's sometimes when people say, "Have you got anything for me?" Like,
And you know what? That can get you in trouble too, can it, Bob?
oh yeah, I can do, yeah. And you say something to them, they go, "You what?" Well, they just told me this. I've got to tell you. Oh right. And then they think, "Oh, how did you know that?" And sometimes I think, should I tell them or not?
Me too. Me too, because I found out you pick up things randomly about people. It's not just something you can do sometimes instantly, and they will harass you for days saying just what you did. Have you got anything for me? What do you think I should do? And it doesn't work
Especially,
like that.
especially young ladies might want a
Yes,
relationship, and I'll say, look, I try and change the subject because otherwise they won't stop until you tell them something.
and you're tempted to just say, "Yes, you're going to live happily ever after. Now leave me alone." I don't do that, but you feel like it sometimes, don't you?
No, I just want to tell the truth, and sometimes if you tell the truth and say, "No, you're not going to meet anybody," you think, "Oh my God, if I say that, she's going to be really off." So I just
Yes,
say, "I'm sorry, I haven't got anything today."
exactly. That's what you have to do.
How did you? I'm going. What we got about 15 minutes left. How did you get to know Derek Tyler then?
I saw a post that he made one time, and I thought, well, that's some information that I haven't heard before. And he also worked with Daryl Sims. I'm sure you know who Daryl Sims is.
Yeah, I do know. Yeah.
Yes, and he also worked with other early researchers and stuff. He had it was called a IR chat group. It was back in the early 1990s when there were no places for abductees to go. So he created this chat, and he didn't think anything would become of it, but all of a sudden, reports were coming in from military, from anywhere from colonels to postal service people to the everyday person, and it had 7 or 800 people. But it also attracted the eye of the military.
Oh.
So some of them came in there to find out what he knew, and Derek had been abducted. So he made friends with a very well known colonel, and I helped him with his book called Alien Contact: The Difficult Truth. He had a book ready to be published in 1994 and had sent it to the publisher. And then he got a knock on his door, and it was two men dressed in black with
Mm,
sunglasses.
yeah.
And they said, "You are not to publish that book. Do not publish it. If you do, you will be sorry. We can make you disappear." Now, that's just a benign way of saying, we might decide just to take you out, to get rid of
Mm,
you. And he became stalked online. He became harassed and everything. So he put that book on the shelf. It was 356 pages.
wow.
So he sent me the manuscript, and it was the best information that I'd ever seen. So I helped him publish the book. It was a number one bestseller.
Brilliant.
So, yes, and this is what I like. I like finding the everyday people, Bob, that have an experience, but they don't get a voice to tell their story. Isn't that what you love about doing your show? I'm sure
Oh God, yeah, I do. Yeah.
you've
It's
discovered
nice,
many people.
and it's nice to connect with like-minded people like
It
you as well.
it is because I feel so good to know that you have the empathic thing too, and you understand it. It makes me feel acceptance of who I am and of other people out there. And we are authentic, and we're not trying to pull people's legs. I'm from the South. I'm from North Carolina, the home of Andy Griffith. If you ever watched Mayberry, it's as country as you get.
Oh
I don't
yes.
I don't really care if people think I'm crazy anymore. So I don't care if they say I'm crazy. I have met some of the most interesting people in the world. Some people I will always keep their story secret because they have asked me to. But I love meeting people like Paul, like you, like Derek, because you're unique and we are part of our own family. Don't you agree?
Oh God, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I
We
love all the
do, yeah.
stories Paul has told me about his house, about you, about
Oh
things y'all
God,
have
yeah.
experienced. I mean,
Oh,
it's unique.
this house is it's like from another planet. Always something happening.
I know, I know. I've looked at that house. I so wish he had been able to interview that priest.
Oh
You
my
know,
God. You know, and all the letters, he found loads of letters, and he didn't realize till later, but the old lady who had the house was a psychic medium. And I
oh,
think they were into more and psychic, and all these letters, and Paul burnt them all. Didn't realize then, unfortunately. And he said, God, if I'd known then, I could have kept all of them and found out a little bit more about the house. Why he came and knocked on my door and said, I need to come to you. I need to go into that room. That's where I am sat now. He
oh
said,
my
never let your
gosh.
children sleep in this room where I am now. And Paul, he didn't realize, but Sarah had walked up. She was only about 6 at the time. He went, right, I want you out of this house. Paul did. After he'd said that, don't have your daughter sleeping in this bedroom here. It's my lounge now. So Paul booted him out. If they kept all the letters, maybe he could have found out a little bit more. I think in the future, he wants to find out a lot of information about the guy. I forgot his name now, and I know his wife. Um, he used to do exorcism around the UK at the same time.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
I hope y'all will pursue that because there is a big connection with what happened before in that house, whether it be there's a portal in that house or it's just it's just hard to understand. I mean, maybe you and Paul are the portal. Maybe it's there, but only certain people can see it. But I'm sure
mm,
when you feel something is off, that you get this like you look around, you think, is somebody watching me?
oh, I get that all the time in this room. I've seen shadows and all sorts in
Yes.
this room. And I think sometimes I hear voices and I think, there's nobody there. So I go and open the door. I go to top of landing. I think, well, Paul's not here. Because Paul always, I leave the door open for him to come up and he'll say, Bob, are you there? I say, come in, come in. And then I
Yeah.
go and I think, there's nobody there. And it's shouting out, Bob. And I think,
Well,
oh,
anybody that's read Paul's books, they're going to get a really big eyeful of what went on at that house related to Paul's abductions from the very beginning. And I
oh
can
God, yeah.
still remember reading those pages, and I mean, Paul's books, I cannot recommend them enough. If you want to find out about abduction, you must read Paul's books. And, he's got more positive reviews than any UFO book that I know of. I mean, everybody that reads his book, I mean, I don't think he's ever got a bad review. They are worth their weight in gold if you want to study the real clues to a person being abducted and what they experience. So I'm just so envious. I told Paul if I ever come to the UK, I'm coming to see you and Mary. I just want to spend time with you because he is a chosen one. He is chosen.
Hmm. I said
And
that to him as well.
yes, and all of his experiences are for a reason. And I'm thankful because in America there's a lot of best-selling authors. I won't say their names, but their books are BS, if you know what those initials stand for, Bob.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
They are,
Yes.
and I laugh at them, and I think, "Oh my god, I can't believe people are buying these books." When you read Paul's books, you will know they are sincere and written from his very heart, and he would
They are.
never ever mislead anybody. So,
I don't know. No, I don't know. Just before we go, about these drones, they're all over the place, and especially in America.
yes, they are. And right now, it is the number one topic everywhere. You can't go on social media without seeing about the drones. Now, of course, I have researched a lot of the pictures. Some of them are authentic. I don't know what they are. They look real. They perform in a way that is not concurrent with aircraft or what we call as drones. Now, the definition of drone, what it really is, it's a robot that can fly remotely, and people can control these things from their house, from a distance, from their place of work, and they can make them fly over. Our military uses them to spy on things. They use them in wars to check and see if there are people inside with weapons. In fact, our military uses them also to spy for nuclear power plants overseas and stuff. So, over New Jersey, that's where it really started. There has been over 5,000 reports of drones.
Good God, that is a lot.
It is a lot, and they are everywhere, even here in North Carolina. And the one thing that is so confusing to us is the Pentagon gives us conflicting information. First, they say, oh, everything's normal, they're not of any harm to us. Well, how do they know that? They use a blanket term for all of them, the UFOs, the drones, the aircraft. They're calling all of them drones. Well, that's very misleading. So then someone in the Pentagon said they were looking for a sneaked in nuclear weapon that was in a suitcase, and that these drones can pick up radiation, they can detect things that would say it was dangerous. Then they come back out and say, no, that's not true. That was not true. So, my understanding is when they flood all of these states with UPAPs, with drones, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, they're trying to divert our attention from something else they don't want us to know, Bob. So
Yeah, I think
that's
they're distracting our minds from something else.
right. But I did notice that you guys had something happen over there at one of your airports,
It
and it
was.
was
There were two objects. It showed you in an airport, and they look like drones, but nobody can tell me for definite what there was.
are
You
you
know,
talking about the Manchester airport? Did you see that
yeah,
one? What was that, Bob?
it's just so strange. It's a good job somebody's took a photo of them. It's quite handy now when you've got a phone with you, a decent phone, you can take some decent photos. But what are they? Why? Why at an airport?
Exactly. Have your sightings increased over there in the last month?
I haven't seen any more as yet. I don't go looking. I just wait till somebody sends me something and say, "Have a look at this and see what you think."
Well, I'm going to, after the show, I'm going to send you a recent one that we saw that really has me scratching my head. And you can be the lookout for if you see anything like that over there. But if people want to see more of these drones, they can go on my Facebook page, Beacon Podcast, and I'm sure you'll put up all my other links and everything. I have
Yeah,
information. I have pictures of the UFO landing marks that my parents saw in 1987. I have other things that I think people will find an interest in. So I welcome everybody to join my page and everything, and that way you can be tuned into what's going on here in America. We seem to have a lot of excitement, Bob.
You do. And Steph just said, wasn't there drones seen over Leconfield? Think it's used by the Americans.
Yes, and we even have had them at the White House, close to the White House. Now, you would think that would be restricted airspace, so why
You
don't they
would, yeah.
shoot them down?
Exactly. Why? Why don't they?
Well, the FAA, which is what everybody has to register their drone with, if it weighs over a pound, they have to register with the Federal Aviation Administration, the FFA. They're saying that they know what they are and that they are no threat to us. But if we see something and we don't know what it is, of course we're going to be worried. So, we don't, I ain't ashamed to say, we don't really trust anything the government tells us over here because they have not been truthful about UFOs, have they?
No, they haven't. No. And if they're saying that, I know Paul got a drone the other week, and he said, I have to register it now. You go online, you've got to register over a certain weight. You're right there.
Exactly. So, we do what we do over here, and I just want to say I love all the UK people. Everybody I've ever interviewed over there has always been charming, gave me lots of good information. I feel like we're in a partnership, and I just appreciate all the things you do, Bob, and I wish you many, many years
Thank you.
of good radio shows and good luck on your upcoming surgery.
Thank you. Mason's just said this. We had drones over Plymouth Navy Dockland this week. The military are investigating.
Doesn't that worry you when they target these military facilities? Like, are they targeting it
Yeah,
because they have a payload and they can drop it, on this, or they have lasers? Some drones have lasers.
of course they do. But
Right. And
where they're from? Who are they?
exactly. And if it's restricted airspace, I'm sorry. I agree with what our president-elect Donald Trump says. If you can't identify it, shoot it down and see where it's from.
Yeah. Didn't they had one last year or a year before where a drone and they shot it down, didn't they?
Yes, they did, and they found out it was from China.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking, China doesn't like us. And right now, I'm sure you've heard there is rumblings of all kinds of war, with other countries from Russia, from Ukraine, all different kinds of things like this. We have to protect our sovereignty. We have to protect our people. And, we can't trust these other countries 100%. So, you know, and if we sent something over there, they have every right to shoot it down,
Yeah,
because we're not supposed to be invading their airspace, but
exactly.
they're not supposed to be invading ours either. So I'm one of those old fashioned people. It's like, I'll be a good neighbor. I'm not going to bother you. You don't bother me. And we'll get along just fine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's so true, Deborah. Exactly.
Right. But, most people, there's so much competition in the world, Bob, with who has the biggest weapons, who has the smartest tech, and all this kind of stuff. It's so immature and juvenile. I'm sorry. I mean, I know we have some crazy countries and they do outrageous things and create wars that are brutal and horrible, but it seems like it's really backfired because it has everybody not trusting the information. We
Mm.
know the media lies to us, so
Oh
if they
God,
can keep us in a spirit of fear, they consider that a success. And I don't want to live that way, do you?
I don't. I don't. If you've got young lads or young lasses at 14 and 15 and coming up to 18, and there's going to be a war on, yeah, they're going to get called up, and you think, oh my God, that's my kids going to war.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I try to associate with people over here who do real research. I love working with Connie Willis. I believe you had her on your show a while back.
I did, Connie, she's lovely, yeah.
She's lovely. I am a blue rocker, and so our groups investigate a lot of this stuff, and we are a community of like minded people. And that's what I suggest. If you have all of these desires to know the truth, join a good group that has good information with other people. You can discuss things. It will make you much happier. And that's what I try to do here. And I'm sure you do the same. But
Yeah, do, yeah. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
they can go on my Facebook page, Deborah Jane East. You can always reach me there. And also the Beacon Podcast Facebook page. I'm also on BitChute. I'm basically on just about all social media somewhere, usually as the Beacon Podcast, which is where I do a lot of shows about what's going on here, worldwide
What
and
time do you,
conspiracies.
Deborah, what time does your show on?
Well, it goes on at different times, just whenever I feel like doing a show. My shows aren't live. I do them pre-recorded just because of what happens when I
Right.
put online that I'm going to have a show. Everything doesn't work. And so I do them sneakily on my own, and they always get up. So they usually come
Ah, yes, it's true. That's what happens. That you've just gone off again. But that's what happens anyway. I'll let you get back on again before we say goodbye. I know Diane just said, lovely guest, very interesting. Thank you, Bob and Deborah. Good night. Steph just says, great show again, such a lovely guest. Joanne's really enjoyed this show tonight. It's been brilliant. Thanks, Bob and Deborah. So it's so nice when you've got people. I'll get her back on again.
Yeah. Do you see? They didn't want me to say that, so they knocked me off.
I'll get you back on before we go off. Um, I know. I was just saying, Joanne said, really enjoyed the show tonight. It's been brilliant. Thanks, Bob and Deborah. Steph said, great show again. Such a lovely guest, Deborah. Diane said, lovely guest. Very interesting. Thank you, Bob and Deborah. So it's quite nice. Oh, you've gone off again. That's typical, isn't it? Once you get started, then unfortunately,
I'm
I think
back. I don't know how for long,
oh,
but
that's good.
thank you for having me on your show. I love you
Hey,
guys.
thank you, Deborah. It's been absolutely wonderful.
You have a wonderful evening, and tell that Paul Sinclair I said hello.
Ah, well, I'll probably see him tomorrow, more than likely. He'll probably come up and see me, or I'll see him.
Take care, Bob.
You too, and have a lovely Christmas.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.